Okay, hello. We are supposedly on the stream now. I hope this is working.
I hope so
You
too.
guys hear me there? Let me know if you can hear me. Anyone out there? Is this working even?
Hello. Anybody out there?
Oh. Yeah, I think it is working now.
Yeah, I see it there on YouTube on your channel.
There we go. All right. So, hello guys. How's everything going? This is the RPG Pundit, the final boss and internet shitlords. And this is the RPG Pundit Encounter, episode 4. And tonight we have with us a somebody who, if you were involved in the OSR back in, well, as far back as I think about 10 years ago at least, you probably are familiar with him, a longtime blogger and YouTuber, and he also has podcasting, I guess, on Spotify. And
Yes,
this is the Evil DM. So we're going to give us a few minutes here. We're going to chat about nonsense while we wait for more people to come in. And while I'm getting my next pipe ready. And after that, we'll really get started with the interview. I wanted to mention...
What flavor do we have tonight?
Pardon me?
What flavor do we have tonight?
Oh, well, we'll see about that as soon as I pick the pipe. So I guess it depends. It depends a lot on which pipe I want to use. Well, I was going to say, for some of you, you might not have heard yet, but Mad Scribe Games has already sent me the first draft, let's say, of the completed 101 Sarmatians. It's just barely under 100 pages. I think it's 99 pages, 98 pages, something like that. And I am looking through it as quickly as I can. I was doing that earlier today before I got to you all. What do I want to smoke here? And anyways, the book looks fantastic. It's illustrated mainly by, not by AI, but not that I have any opposition to it. But in this case, Mad Scribe had a whole bunch of, in medieval illustrated manuscripts, they often had these like little doodles of different things, medieval doodles that were just put in the margin to fill space. And there's tons of those in the book, right? So, and a lot of them are really, really excellent kind of, he's picked ones that tie into the subject matter somehow in certain ways. And so I think he's done a really good job. As usual, Mad Scribe is fantastic when it comes to layout, when it comes to art, all of that. So I think it's going to be quite a good product. And assuming that we don't find anything unbelievably wrong with it, I'm already up to like page 85, so I don't think we will. It's probably going to come out sooner than I expected. I doubt it'll come out before the end of the month, because it still would have to, it has to go to drive through, and that takes at least 2 weeks. But I think it'll very likely come out, unless drive through delays for some reason. It'll very likely come out in January.
Holiday delay, yeah.
Yeah, you can just save up some of that Christmas money or whatever, and you can pick up 101 Sarmatians in January. For those of you, in case anyone doesn't know, 101 Sarmatians is the first big source book for Baptism of Fire, and it's the source book that's all about the Slacha, the Polish nobility, and it's going to have 101 NPCs that are separated into like the different, I think there's 40 or 50 different Slacha clans that are mentioned. And it's also going to have a lot more details on how the nobility work, on their history and their culture, what's called Sarmatism. And also it's going to have random tables with adventure queues and that sort of thing. It'll have a a reprint of the priest and courtier class for NPCs, basically, though in theory someone could play one. And it'll also have a baptism of fire version of the Cult of the Saints. So it'll have rules for praying to the specific saints that were popular in Poland at this time, and details on those saints and what they do. So there's going to be a little bit of everything there. So it's pretty good stuff, I think, and I think you're going to like it. So, all right, I'm going to finish picking out a pipe, which I think I'm just going to, I'm not going to complicate my life. I'm just going to grab this one, which is just plain old Argento roots. All natural Argentinian tobacco.
Ooh.
This is not a promotion or anything more on YouTube, please. Please don't mistake it for one. This is just me talking about what I'm liking to smoke.
RPGPundit is sponsored by. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, really. There's always that kind of risk sometimes, you know, like when I review a game or something. But you know, I'm not paid for any of that, and definitely not paid for this. So, and speaking of which, obviously, as usual, the live stream itself is not being monetized, but I will greatly appreciate any super chats that you want to give. If you do a super chat, your super chat will definitely be read out loud, unless it has something that could demonetize me, in which case it won't be. So don't be idiotic that way. But other than that, please feel free to put in a super chat, and you know, it's a great way to show your support for the RPG Pundit encounter. We plan to have some other guests coming up. I think hopefully next month or the month after that, I'll be getting someone involved with the old TSR. And there's like lots of people coming to me, right? People with smaller channels, because I do want to, like, I want to encourage people that have smaller YouTube channels, newer YouTubers and things like that. And so if I check out your stuff and I think that you're interesting, putting you on this show will be a good way to help promote you. So, okay, I see there's a lot of people here now. Well, 35, that's a good start anyway. I'm sure that there's going to be some more still coming in over time. It usually takes almost like 15-20 minutes before we get to like peak numbers, but I think we can probably get started here. Let me just quickly look over the comments in case there's anything that we want to comment already. A lot of I can hear yous, very good. Matthew Sanance asks best Pokemon. Well, obviously, I would have no idea. Maybe the Evil DM has an answer.
Charizard.
Okay, there you go. I don't know what that is, but apparently that's it.
The equivalent of a dragon.
Judd Goswick has an important question, which is, where does the Evil DM fall on the law chaos axis? We know you're evil, but are you lawful, neutral, or chaotic?
Lawful. I follow the rules, but I twist them to however I need to.
I see. Judd Goswick says 99 pages, but an index ain't one. Yeah, well, that is typical of Matt Scribes. Matt Scribe is not a great believer in indexes, I think, but he usually has a fairly good table of contents. So that's usually enough for most books. Let's see if anything else.
Good to see you, Rick. Good to see you, God Made in Heaven.
Yeah, Rick says little bits of art tucked here and there are cool. Plus, we all need a break from anime-esque schlock. Yeah, well, I don't think any of my books have had anime-esque schlock, but certainly I've had different publishers, and different publishers have done different styles, and I think Mad Scribes are really top notch. Not to say that, you know, obviously Dom Publishing that did Lion and Dragon was really great.
Speaking of that, Pundy, Lion and Dragon, you know you've made it big when your book is at half price books in the locked case for $100. Lion and Dragon.
Really? There was a Lion and Dragon for $100.
Yes, it was in there, and it said rare book, $100. I was like, holy shit, Pundy's book is here.
That is a surprise because you can still buy Lion and Dragon in print from Drive-Thru RPG. Let me look at it right now. It would be, I don't know if you had the one you had there was a soft cover or a hard cover, but at present,
soft cover. Yeah.
At present, the soft cover is $18.99 on Drive-Thru. So I hope someone does pay them $100 for it. That'd be great. Maybe it's, I don't know, a fake signed copy, or maybe it's a real signed copy. I don't know. I've signed a couple of Lion and Dragon books, so maybe someone decided to sell it. But
I just saw it there. I was like, holy shit, I got to tell them about that.
Yeah. That is, by the way, still a really good price. I have to check at some point. I don't know how Drive-Thru works. Like if they raise their printing costs, do they automatically raise the price of the product? Because, $18.99 for a 130-page soft cover is on the lower side these days for sure, right? Like with their current prices are. So I might not be making any money at all off of that. I'm not sure, but I guess I'll have to ask the publisher about that. All right, so we've got we've got people talking about Pokemon, so that I'm definitely putting a stop to that, and instead I'm going to get started on the interview now that we're almost practically at 40 people. So the usual first question in every episode so far. We know you're a YouTuber, podcaster,
yes,
blogger,
yes,
long history of commenting in the RPG hobby.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, who has been good to you and who has been bad to you?
Good to me, I would have to say Venger. Venger has always been a good person to me. One of the good ones. And you've also been a very good person too. Regardless of the situation, you've always talked to me fairly and listened to whatever I had to say. So, and we've had our discussions on X or Twitter at the time via private message, and we went back and forth with a bunch of things. And you've always listened and stated your opinion. So yeah, you're in that group. As far as treated badly, well, I'd rather not say that because that'll cause too much of a strife.
So the evil DM doesn't really want to get into it. Okay, fair enough.
No.
I guess I can understand that. So it's. I guess I should. The next question I should ask is, how did you get or choose the moniker of the evil DM?
So when I was in the 80s, when I was first learning to DM, I used to screw with the players and twist everything around and kill them constantly, then bring them back to life and then kill them again. And finally some guy's like, you're an evil DM. And I'm like, you know what? That's a great name for me. So I'd be like, you're walking around and all of a sudden you die of a heart attack. And they'd be like, oh, shit. And you're back to life. Oh, rocks fall on you. You're dead. And it's just like, they're like, you're a dick. You're an evil DM. I'm like, I know. So I stuck with that name.
I see. All right, well, that I gotta say, I that wouldn't be my theory of DMing, but it at the very least you can say that it was not a moniker that you just decided on, that you picked. It's similar with me with the final boss in Internet Shitlords, right? That was a comment from a very woke individual who was complaining about how I remember, I'm always around and they can't get rid of me. They've gotten rid of other people, but they can't get rid of me. And he's like the final boss of Internet Shitlords. I said, I love that. And after that, I decided, because it was right around the time I was starting my YouTube channel, I said, I'm going to use that forever now.
I know they said it to try to annoy the crap out of you, and you're like, that is awesome. I'm taking it.
Yeah. It was what today could be called a Trumpian move, right?
The T word.
When they say, his followers are garbage, so he starts driving a garbage truck. Just turns it all around.
Yeah. No, Mercurius, that's not how I DM still. Stop it.
I see. So what is it that makes you evil? I mean, are you even still evil now if you say that you don't DM that way anymore?
No, I don't DM like that because that was childish, but I do have a habit of twisting things around in the game to my favor. I have a habit of having NPCs really dick over the party. Um, I will tempt players. Like I had a campaign running for quite some time. I tempted a player with this magical crown. He picked up on it and he hid from the group and betrayed the group, all because I tempted him. So, I mean, I do things like that.
Ah,
Deplorable
okay.
garbage. That's right. Deplorable garbage.
So, Autistically Accurate has an important question. Does the Evil DM have a top favorite pundit product?
Oh, geez. I like Lion and Dragon the most, I think. Yeah.
Okay, very good. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
It's one of my best sellers, so certainly we can count that.
Mm-hmm.
Just one second here. I'm trying to get to your. Oh, there we go. All right. So, okay, that's easy. I was just going to comment before we continue that the Evil DM's YouTube channel is at the Evil DM. So that's, I shouldn't even have bothered to look it up. I should have just asked to, but I thought I'd have to copy and paste some link or something, but no. So if you're not familiar with him already, you can check him out. I will later put that in the description. I forgot to do it before the start of the show, but I'll do it as soon as we're done the show. And we can comment on it a few more times over the course of the evening. Let me see here. Just looking over the comments while I catch up on it. And okay, I just think there's no other particular questions. Autistically Accurate says his favorite is The Invisible College. The Invisible College is a great modern occult RPG of secret societies fighting with magic and spycraft in a secret war for the destiny of humankind. So it's an interesting game and an interesting setting, and it's magical, authentic, I guess you could say. If it's not gonna, the Invisible College will not teach you how to do real life spells or something like that. But if you study the magic section, you'll probably know more about real hermetic magic as it is practiced in the world than pretty much any Wiccan, So you'll be a bigger expert on the occult than your New Age schoolmates or wherever workmates, So it does have that. Judd Gossick says Lords of Olympus. Well, that's an oldie but a goodie. And he also says No Murdered is too spicy for #1. Those are both old products of mine. World of the Last Sun says the Ultra American. I like that because, of course, World of the Last Sun is my. It's hard to say it's my favorite campaign, but it's the longest campaign I've ever run, ever. It's getting close to its 12th year now, and it is the funnest campaign I ever ran. I don't know if I'd say I would make it the favorite, but like the amount of hilarity in that campaign has just been incredible, and that it's still going strong after all this time. So
that's awesome.
So you have you ever tried your hand at writing RPG products, or is that something that you've just felt that you don't really care to do, that you'd rather keep being a commentator more than anything?
No, I did do a clone of Holmes, D&D, Mazes and Perils. It went on. I did a clone of the original, and then I did my own version of it with Deluxe, following up in 2016. With adding my own mix to it there, and I've written a bunch of modules for it and stuff like that.
And did you publish those?
Yes, they're on DriveThruRPG.
They're on DriveThru. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Go. And how did they do?
The original Mazes and Perils won an Emmy in 2012 for Best Free RPG, and I believe the Deluxe was silver. I don't know what it is anymore at this point.
Well, that's very good.
Yeah. And I put out a magazine, Perilous Pathways, recently, just adding some more spells and tables and stuff like that. Been trying to update it a little bit, things like that.
Okay, well, there you go. And but since then, you haven't really, that didn't like activate in you a great incentive to go out and start making, I don't know,
No.
more OSR games or anything else.
No, I don't have the drive, so to speak, like you do. When you publish so much stuff, it's unbelievable, and it's always good stuff too. But no, I don't have the drive like most of you. I just put it out when I feel like it. I'm not really much of a writer myself. I try, but you know, I'd rather do the commentary side.
Well, since you define yourself as a DM, this wasn't on my standard list, but I've just come up with it. What is your opinion on so-called professional DMs? People who live which has become a bit of an increasing thing now, as you have a lot of kind of casual tourists in the hobby that, or even like people that have the same workplace or whatever that want to hire a guy to run a D&D game for them. Is that something you would ever consider doing?
So to answer your question very to the point, at the comic book store a couple years ago, there was a professional DM there, and I ran a game freely next to it so he wouldn't get his customers.
All right. I think we have the same opinion on that.
Sorry, that just pisses me off. You're going to sit there and charge people to learn a game and play a game that you and I, when we were kids, greeted and brought people over and sat them down and like, here, play. Yes, please. Not, hey, give me $5. I'll show you how to play. No, fuck you. Yeah. No.
Now, I mean, in some contexts, I could sort of imagine someone doing this, but it would mainly be like a subversive context, because like I can imagine if, I don't know, Lockheed Martin decided to have like a corporate weekend resort thing, and one of the, you know, there were a bunch of, I don't know, the engineers there that wanted to play D&D, and they're like, oh, let's get a celebrity DM, right? And if that celebrity DM gets 10 grand out of Lockheed Martin, then more power to him, right? And let's hope that they kind of fuck around with the players during the game, right? But you know, like this notion of like trying to like have a full-time, because there are people that are trying to do this, to be like full-time professional DMs. That just doesn't, I don't get that. I don't really approve of it, because also it changes the same way that if you're like running a game on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever, as like a live game like Critical Role, the very fact that you're doing it in that context changes it from what it normally is. It suddenly isn't really the RPG anymore. It's a show about people playing an RPG, right? And if you're charging for the game, you're not really the god of that world. You're the employee of the player characters, right? And so that alters fundamentally the relationship in that context, right? So yeah, there's a question somewhere around here. Oh, here we go. Oh no, hang on. That was not the right one. I've got to go further back, I think.
There's some good questions in here.
Driving and Dragons says, does Evil DM, hey, by the way, that's our previous guest from last time. Thank you for coming back, Driving and Dragons. Does Evil DM have a game not in the D&D lineage he favors?
Yeah, actually, there's two that I favor quite some bit. Let's see. I like Unisystem by Eden Studios, the cinematic, and Mini 6, the open product Mini 6. Those are the two I really favor. I'm in the Palladium camp as well. I do like Palladium games a lot.
Well, 1 out of 3 ain't bad, so that's good.
Thank you. 33% chance, right?
Yeah. And what was the... oh, here we go. God Made Heaven Bound says, Evil DM, how often do players surprise or shock you with antics or spell work?
If you listen to any of the actual plays that I've done, you would know none of them really surprise me. My group, they like to annoy me, so they'll do whatever it takes. Nothing really surprises me anymore, to be honest. I just take it in stride and go with it. X card should require a fee.
No one of consequence says, I would never charge my friends to DM, but if a group approached me and offered to pay, I would do it. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to hate on anyone for wanting to make a quick buck on like an occasional conditional situation. But like I said, these guys are like, no, I'm a professional DM. That's a real thing. You know, no, that is not a real thing, you know? And in fact, it makes you not a proper DM if you're taking money from the players for it, right?
No, if
it
like
could
you
be
said,
a little different if you took money from like somebody who isn't playing, and he's like, yeah, you're going to run this game for these people, but you're not, you don't have to, it's not your job to give them what they think their characters want or anything like that, right? They can make no demands of you because I'm the one paying for you, not them, right? But what would be the circumstances where something like that happened? It'd have to be very weird.
Well, to answer that one, if someone came up to me and said, "Here, it's $20, I want you to DM it," I'd be like, "No. I'll DM the game for you. You buy us lunch. How's that?" That's what I would do.
That's good too. Yeah.
Yeah. Buy us snacks, whatever. You know.
Chris Young says, my group of 40 plus years would pay in cash and pizza for a DM. Okay. But Chris, do you mean that you've been doing that for 40 years? You've been paying DMs, or do you mean that you're in need of a DM and are willing to pay cash and pizza for one? I'm not quite sure how that question is phrased. The Death Angel Shadow says, I'd never charge to DM, but bribes of food and drink are appreciated and encouraged. I've DM'd for beer, says Lethal RPG. Judd Gossick, he says he has a fee. It's $3.50. And you know what you can buy with $3.50, guys? Thank you for the setup, Judd. You can go to the Red Room store and check out the Pundit Files. And every single issue of the Pundit Files, we're up to issue 24 right now. The current one is Space Opera Adventure Locations, number 24. But there's tons of other great Pundit Files issues, and every single one of them costs just $3.50. So if you can get $3.50, if someone can give you $3.50, or if you find $3.50, if you take $3.50 from some kind of monster, possibly near a lock, then you can purchase an issue of the Pundit Files. And we've got Medieval Authentic Adventures. We've got the martial artist class for Sword and Caravan. We have the Medieval Calendar Year, Talismans and Djinn Magic of the Silk Roads, the Merry Men in Sherwood, Weird Magical Objects, Medieval City Guides, all kinds of exciting stuff, jousting rules, the Invisible College 1930s campaign, if you want to run the Invisible College in the 1930s. Every single one of those. There's 24 issues so far, so you're already bound to find something you're going to find useful there. And it's a great way to check out the Red Room store, which also has all of the Red Room stuff. And if Evil DM, if you think I put out stuff at incredible volumes, that's nothing compared to what the Red Room does. They've said they're going to like slow down next year. So I'm guessing it'll mean they'll only put out 75 products in the first 6 months or something like that. But, for them, that'll be taking it easy. Yeah, so check out the Red Room store and check out the Pundit Files. And if you've got $3.50, or if you've got two $3.50s, you can buy 2 issues of the Pundit Files, or 3, you can buy 3 issues of the Pundit Files. You cannot buy 3 $50 issues of the Pundit Files, but we'll figure out some way to do that sometime.
I have to stop you right here. God Made Heaven is offering to make lasagna for me for DMing, so that's probably a good deal.
You'd go for that, huh? All right, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a homemade Italian lasagna, absolutely. I don't even know where he lives, though.
Yeah, that would be the first question, if he lives in Arizona and his last name is McCormick, you might not want to get the lasagna. Whereas, if he's living in New Jersey, maybe, but then you'd have to watch out for the drones.
Oh God, the drones! Yeah, that is ridiculous. It's not human or liars, whatever. Yeah, that's the statement they put out today. Yeah, go ahead, continue.
Ultra American says, I need to catch up on the Pundit Files, but I keep buying more books. Well, that's good. Tabletop Gaming at Phototech says the Red Room has to slow down because they fired the OGGM. What's the story about that, Tabletop? I hadn't heard that. By the way, I'm not employed in any way by the Red Room. They're just hosting the Pundit Files there, which is very nice of them. but you know, I'm not actually working with them as such. I'm just using their website the same way that you use drive-through, right? So I don't know the details of the business. Ultra American says the OGGM was starting drama and blocked a bunch of us for no reason. There's usually some kind of reason. It might be a bad reason. I don't know, but there's usually some kind of reason. I guess I'll have to try to find out what I can learn about that, because I hadn't heard about this drama in the Red Room. Oh my. All right, so you've Evil DM. Let's get back to the subject of you, because this is your interview.
Bring it back
blog,
in.
You YouTube, you podcast. What's the main one of those? If people are going to see one of those three, which one would you want them to see the most, or first, or whatever?
YouTube would probably be the best thing to go to. I do podcasting as secondary because I enjoy podcasting. So it's just a way to do something extra, and it feeds right into my YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube if you just want to hear everything I do.
Does your blog still get views? Because you know, I basically abandoned my blog as soon as I became a YouTuber, because I saw where it was going. I noticed over the last like year or so before I got into YouTubing that blog viewership was declining dramatically, and I said, okay, well, I guess I've got to switch over from the written word to video.
I mostly have my blog, which is on Substack now, as just an announcement for stuff I'm doing, like shows, show notes, things like that, links. So I mean, it has.
Yeah, I on my blog now, I basically just post the videos I make on YouTube, right? So that's basically it. But it's a bit sad. I mean, the written word is also worthwhile, but nowadays I think the written word is best. Is most successful, anyways, most read on like Twitter, where it's basically soundbite level written word.
Yeah,
I just did a video where I was telling people that cause there's probably people now who are young enough that they were never on message boards, right? So I'm telling people, look, Twitter's great for having arguments, for having, you know, fights about D&D, and Discord is great for having chat about D&D and kind of a live or semi-live state or an ongoing flow of a chat room. But if you don't know what it's like to have a message board where there's, you know, enough people talking and enough long form threads where you can get 11, 12, 50 pages of threads, then you don't know what you're missing. So, you know, luckily the RPG site is still, unlike blogs, is still going quite strong. And so I did this video telling some of the viewers, you know, maybe you've never been to the RPG site, check it out. And it's done very well. So what games are you currently running games? And if so, which ones are you running right now?
Yes, I'm running two games, actually. One is a Starfinder game, and the other one is a Mini 6 Supernatural Hunters game.
Okay. And how are they going?
Pretty well. I mean, some of the people here in the chat are part of the group, so they could probably tell you more than I can. I think it's...
Are they online or in person?
Online. I don't run any in-person games much anymore. Because I live in a college town, so I'm sure you can figure out what type of players I usually get. Those are the Matt Mercer and Colville lovers that come into the games, and I can't stand them. So
yeah,
I want to deal with them.
I get you. I'm lucky that here it's a bit different. So I've got 2 out of my 3 campaigns are in person. And one is online, but I'm getting used to playing online. I mean, at least that group has been so well handpicked for that campaign, for the Sword and Caravan campaign, that they make it fun to be there, and it's almost the same as being in the same room. So it's pretty good. And I think like everything, it always depends on the group, because like you said, you get a bunch of blue-haired liberal women that want to play, you know, non-binary tieflings. That I would rather do an online game with a bunch of grognards than doing a live game with those people, right? So
I meant to say there are a couple games on my YouTube channel that Jeff and I do We call collaboration or co-op gaming, and we just use a Mythic emulator as our GM. So we just kind of role play that way through it without a GM. I don't know if you're familiar with solo role playing at all.
Well, I am. I'm familiar with the concept of it. I've not been a big fan of it as a rule, but
each their own.
But, yeah, exactly. So Judd Gossick has some more details here on the Red Room drama. The OG stopped working with Red Room to work with Grim Jim. He wants to stay out of the culture war. If he wants to stay out of the culture war and he's hooking up with Grim Jim,
that's not staying out.
That's error number one, isn't it? Because I mean, Grim Jim is one of these rare figures that is, it's him and Zach Smith, although I think they despise each other. That they're both leftists who got canceled by other leftists and can't get over that, but still despise, the right at the same time. So they're basically, and they can't even handle each other. So like they each have their little fandom of people that are continue to support them, and they're always controversial, right? Like Grim Jim is always controversial. So I'm not sure how stepping out of the Red Room and the Portuguese frying pan and into the English fire is going to make a big difference for OGGM. But okay. Oh yeah, Ultra American said Grim Jim's the worst person to work with if you're trying to stay out of the culture war. Really?
Yeah. Oh, is Reddit a good substitute for forums? I think it's a good substitute for mimicking what forums were, but
Reddit would have been a really good substitute, except that it's been largely captured by at the moderation level by leftists who are then going to engage in the same kind of censorship that happened to a lot of forums as well, right? So I mean that's what happened to RPGNet, and I mean you go to the /OSR Reddit, which I almost never do and wouldn't recommend that you bother doing, but if you go and you try to like talk about Alexander Macris, for example, that is, I believe, still like an instant ban in the /OSR thing. Because Macris is an evil alt-right figure or something like that, which is just ridiculous.
He's such a good person. Stop it.
That in itself, yeah, Macris is a great guy, and I used to work with him. But if that was by itself, that would be bad enough. But there's also the format of how Reddit works, where they have these upvotes and downvotes, and it's not just like I like or I dislike. What happens is the amount of downvotes you get or upvotes determines how prominent your responses to the subject matter become, right? So if someone is asking about, what are the best OSR games? And, if you've got some leftist comes on and says, Mothership is the best, it's the best OSR game and it's Marxist, and then they'll get 100 likes or thumbs up or whatever they're called, upvotes. And so they'll be right there at the top response. And then you could get a number of other people that might say, well, we like Baptism of Fire. It's really good, right? But then everybody, all of the leftist mob there will downvote it, and it won't even show up. It'll show up at the bottom where there's like a little plus thing that says see additional controversial posts, and then there you'll get to see it, right? So the main problem with it is the lack of free speech, right? The RPG site isn't like that, much to some people's chagrin, because there are people that are like, well, but misinformation and stuff like that. But the RPG site has rules. It has very few rules. They tend to be quite clear. You can't post any kind of naked pictures or anything like that on there, right? You can't post anything illegal. You can't share on there either illegal, like copyrighted content or links to copyrighted content.
Fair enough.
You can't intentionally derail threads by off-topic posting or just spam posting or things like that. You can't dox someone. You can't go around stalking someone on the site by going to every thread they post and insulting them without real content. It's a very basic stuff, right? And if you do that, but within those confines, you can say whatever you want, right? And you know, there's no I try at least as much as possible not to let any kind of a political bias affect what I say. And I mean, you can talk about any RPG. People say, oh, well, but it's mostly OSR. Yeah, it is mostly OSR, because mostly OSR people have an affinity towards that kind of free speech sort of libertarian ideal. But if you could have a dozen people who like, I don't know, what's it called? Fighting sword lesbians or whatever. One of those kind of RPGs.
Thirsty sword lesbians, yeah.
Thirsty sword lesbians. There you go. Yeah, that's even worse. But you could get people like that, and they could post about it. I'd probably say it might be a story game. So I'd have to check out if it's really an RPG or just a story game. If it's a story game, they'd have to post it in the other games forum, but they could still do that to their heart's content, you know.
Little secret, there is another OSR Reddit that is more fair and balanced than the OSR. It's just called the OSR. If you want to join, they're more
the OSR, but is it private?
Private? No, you can, anybody can join it and see it, but it's not like the other OSR where it's ruled by the left hand.
Yeah, but like for example on Facebook, most RPG related Facebook groups are very ideologically captured, and the ones that aren't tend to get reported, or they tend to get infiltrated. And so I know that there's like a couple of right-wing, or not really right-wing even, but like, you know, anti-woke, let's call them, old school Facebook groups that are basically like, you can't see them or something like that. You have to somebody has to send you the link to them to join, right? They're private Facebook groups, because that's the only way they can get away with it on Facebook.
Yep.
Which is like horrifying, right? It's like, it's crazy, you know. Like it's more than just autocratic, it's totalitarian. So let's see what else we got. Autistically Accurate says RPG Pundit site forums have rapid replies, impressively so. That's because there's still there's a ton of people that like to post there, and it's never really, I mean, I suppose it's probably declined a little bit from like the peak period of like the mid, like around 2010 maybe was its highest point, but the decline after that has been relatively small. We still have, you know, a full page of new posts every day, right? So it's really and usually those are multiple posts per thread, right? So it goes really well, and you still get massively large threads in certain areas. So it's good stuff. Let's see here. Ben Brown says, when running multiple games weekly, how do you guys prevent becoming formulaic and keeping the game fresh? I don't know if he means multiple games of the same campaign, or if he means if you're running like 2 or 3 different campaigns, how do you distinguish it? I don't know. What do you think, Evil DM?
I think he's more along the lines of saying, you're running 2 different games. Say you're running 2 different games like me. How do you make sure they're not the same type of, I guess, style or format of, say, one game is Rescue the Princess, this game is Rescue the Robot. You know, you're kind of making the same thing but different genres. Maybe that's what he's saying.
Well, the choice is, you know, at the start of your campaigns, make sure that you're not running a campaign that's a lot like a campaign that you're already running. Make it about something else, right? So you have to have a different element to it. And I don't know, in some ways I might be breaking that rule myself, because, you know, right now I'm running Sword and Caravan, Baptism of Fire, and World of the Last Sun. And in a way, all 3 of them are these kind of picaresque campaigns of people wandering around and getting themselves into trouble. But they have a very different flavor in each one, right? Like, so obviously World of the Last Sun is full Gonzo and just nuts as a setting. Baptism of Fire is largely about these Polish characters that are down on their luck initially, and are trying to make their way to like fame and fortune. And Sword and Caravan is a group of originally it was a group of former crusaders who have been sent on a mission to accompany a monk to go find lost Christians along the Silk Road, and so it's developed from there. And they're all at different power levels right now, and they all have different interests. So I think that they're still suitably different enough, rather, that they don't feel like they each have their very own feel that is very different from the other groups feel, and also the players are different, so that makes a big difference too. I think you could run the same type of campaign, the same game, with two different groups, and you're likely to have, as long as you're like playing in a sandbox style, definitely those will go in different directions.
Generally, it should, hopefully. I mean, depending on the players. Hopefully, they're not going to mimic each other, but you never know.
Yeah. All right, so let's see if there's any other questions here before I carry on with mine. Grim's mad at everyone all the time, says MJ Davis. Yeah, well, he's either mad or he feels attacked by everyone all the time. Reddit locks in the echo to the chamber. Well put, yeah. Autistic Action says, as I recall, Twitter used to have up-down votes. That's true, but I think that all that did at the most was like to affect the algorithm of how likely it was to show up on your screen. We have our first super chat for the night. Thank you, $5 for Snake Oil Sean. That'll go to my kitten proofing efforts in the house before I get a new cat.
Oh yeah, sorry about that loss, man. That's a tough one.
That's all right, but she had a good life.
Yeah.
Are there any psionic-based fantasy RPGs or systems other than Dark Sun where powers and supernatural abilities are not magic-based? I'm sure there are, but I don't know. Fantasy, though. I don't know. None of them come to mind offhand. Right? Of course, there are some settings that kind of imply that magic is actually like super science. That like in the kind of conceit that comes from the Dying Earth. That magic is actually like some kind of super science that they don't really know how to use anymore.
Aren't the abilities in Torg like that? Yeah,
Possibly.
I think Torg is like that.
I used to like Torg quite a bit, but that was a long time ago. I can't recall. But I'm sorry that we don't have a good answer to your question, Snake Oil Sean. Anyways, in Dark Sun, they have psionics, but that's not all they have. They do also still have magic, as far as I know. What the preservers and the defilers, or whatever they were called, had was still traditional spell magic. But there we go. Judd Goswick says RPGNet used to be good in the noughties, but well, I mean, it was good maybe until 2001 or 2002. After that, it was already trash. Agile Monk says, just tired of the negative junk from all angles. Let's play our games our way and enjoy them. Ignore the negativity and the garbage. We need far more positivity. I don't know. I think we need more aggressive positivity. Guy who likes Heelys says, guy who likes Heelys says, wait, I haven't been around. Meatball is gone. Yes, she passed away. She was almost 15, had a good life. Sam Vasquez says, long live Facebook group OSR HQ. Thank you, Pundit. There you go. That is one of the anti-woke Facebook groups, if anyone still uses Facebook. I still use it because I have an RPG Pundit page. Otherwise, I've heard that like the average age of Facebook users now is something like 70. So it's really frightening. Like there are no teenagers on there at all anymore, and there's only like a tiny number of Gen Xers. It's all boomers basically.
I mean, you're maybe
that still probably means there's like millions of boomers on there, millions of Gen Xers on there, but. The younger you are, the less likely you're even to consider it. All right. So moving on.
Yes, sir.
We do have, we've got to say something about current events, and the biggest recent current event in gaming has been that Elon Musk essentially came out as a D&D fan and a Gary Gygax fan at that, and he was very unhappy with Hasbro, and he made the suggestion that he just might decide to buy Hasbro like he did with Twitter. And right now, I think that's all that it is. But remember, the first time he said, "Oh, maybe I should buy Twitter," it was quite a long time before he went from there to actually starting the process of buying it. You know, it took some thinking on his part. But what do you think? Do you want Elon Musk to buy Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast? Either way, right? And end up being in charge of D&D.
I don't know, honestly. I don't know much about his gaming, and if he just came out recently, like I'm really surprised.
I heard he's like a secret Diablo champion. I don't know how this guy manages to build the best rockets on Earth, driverless cars, run X, and also be like a champion of. I don't know how tough Diablo is, but I'm assuming it's if you're a champion in Diablo, that must be like, at the very least, like being a grandmaster in chess or something. Like, so where does he get the god? Like, does he not sleep at all? I can barely manage to write, a pundit file every couple of weeks and keep working on my bigger books and manage to get 4 hours of sleep. So I don't know how this guy does it.
I don't think he's going to buy, just like he put out he's going to buy MSNBC. So I think he's just toying with people. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that a lot of it is screwing around, but you never know. Elon, that's the thing. You never know what he's going to do. He's a very weird lateral thinker that sees things other people don't,
Well, if he does buy, let's say, Wizards of the Coast, so he could revamp D&D, at least we know that he would put people in charge that would take good care of it.
Well, maybe me, who knows? I don't know if
There
you're
you go.
aware,
Maybe
but I'm
you.
now only 1 degree of separation from Elon Musk. I did a video about this. I have I got this guy, this Argentinian came over. Well, he messaged me on Twitter. He said, "Pundit, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm going to be in Uruguay. Can I meet you? Can we have coffee or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, sure. I could do that. That sounds fine." He seemed like a normal enough guy. And then when the date was coming closer to when he was, because he said I was going to be there like in the next week on Friday, right? And I double checked, say, "Are you still coming?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "So why are you coming?" He goes, "Well, I'm the media, the media manager for Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, and so I'm coming to the meeting of the Mercosur, which is the union of Southern Cone countries, right?" And so he's like, literally, he's the guy that takes and sometimes takes and sometimes just picks any of the photos or videos that are put out by the Argentinian government of Javier Milei, which means he travels with them everywhere, right?
Okay.
And he meets me at the Radisson, the nicest hotel in Montevideo, and we head out to the old city. We go grab a coffee, and he's like, "Oh my God, the RPG pundit!" He's like so happy to meet me, right? And he's like, and I'm like, "You're seriously Milei's guy? Like, Milei, and you're like happy to see me, right?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, look at this," and he's like showing me, at CPAC with Ben Shapiro, and then in Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, right? And Javier Milei and him there, right? And in the photos, right? It's like, yeah,
wow.
We just did this like this has just been the last 10 days for me, right? I have to go everywhere that Milei goes, and I'm always in charge of his image, right? And I'm like, "Oh well." And he's like, "Yeah, but now I'm talking to the RPG pundit." So I'm figuring the day I hear Elon is actually doing a real try for this, I'm going to call up this guy. I'm going to tell him, "Look, you've met Elon, right? You get in touch with Mar-a-Lago, you get them to pass over to Elon, tell them he needs to put the RPG pundit in charge of D&D, and I'm going to get a leg up on the competition by the Milei connection, right? Because all of the Republicans in the MAGA administration are desperate to be able to do as good a job as Milei has done with Argentina. So it's that's my in. So there we go. We'll see if it works, but I guess that'll depend on if he buys it or not. But I assume that if you're reluctant to see him buy it anyways, it's not because you vastly approve of what Wizards is doing.
No, Wizards just not is taking D&D and making it into its own game now, and it's not called D&D anymore. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not D&D at all.
I'm sure that if Diversity and Dragons were here, he'd come up with a pithy title for it, but it kind of eludes me at the moment. I mean, it would probably, one of the D's would probably be diversity, though. So there you go.
Yeah, well, dickheads and dragons, more like it, something like that. Who knows?
Yeah. So are you, like, how involved are you in, let's say, the culture war in the context of gaming? Because speaking of the OGGM claiming he wants to get out of the culture war aspect of gaming, which obviously affects the OSR a lot, right? Because there are people who want to politicize the OSR. There are people who hate the OSR for allegedly being conservative, which I don't really think. The OSR isn't really conservative. It's just gamers who are normative wanting gaming to be normative. You know, that's not really conservative. That's just normal. You know, conservative would be like, no, we want all of our games to have right-wing propaganda in them, right? And I don't think anybody's saying that.
No, nobody's saying that at all. Definitely. No, I stay out of the culture war, to be honest. I want to just play. I want to promote games. I want to show my love for the games, and that's it. I stay out of drama. At least I try to.
I see. Once again, you're kind of disappointing me on the basis of your name, right? One would think the evil DM would go around being some kind of a shitlord, right? Like,
no, I'm not. I reserve that title for you being the shitlord. So,
all right. We've got a super chat here from the Ultra American TTRPGer. He says, "I think Musk should do to $5 super chat. Thank you very much. I think Musk should do to D&D what he did to Twitter: remove all the DEI hires and rebrand it something completely new. Oh, and hire Rob Kuntz." Well, I agree with that. I actually said that in my video. I did a video because, you know, after I met Javier Milei's publicity guy, where I gave my breakdown, what my pitch to Elon would be, and I would certainly say that pretty much everybody left there, with maybe 2 exceptions, would have to go. They'd all have to be fired, right? Because none of them are worth anything, right? There's a handful of guys that are below mediocre game designers that are just kind of going around acting as though they were great game designers when they're not. And then literally everybody else there has no idea what they're doing, because they haven't, you know, most of them never even played before being hired by Wizards now, because they were hired as partially as diversity hires, but mostly in practice as nepotism hires, right? Because they know Ajit George or one of these other guys, and, you know, he knows them from the vegan cookbook parties he's run, and so, you know, they're people who have worked on vegan cookbooks, and so he's going to hire them to write the next D&D module and stuff like that. So it's just insane and terrible.
What I can say about Wizards of the Coast here, and you might find interesting, in 2011, when I went to Gen Con and met with Chris Perkins at the time, who was just an intern at Wizards of the Coast, not one person there knew anything other than D&D 3.5 and 4. That's it. They didn't know anything about AD&D at all, and most of them barely even knew 3.5. So
yeah, Perkins and Crawford are not to be highly esteemed in any way. Let's put it that way.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was just a comment.
No, I'm saying exactly the opposite. Is, as you say, right? Like they're basically amateurs, right? They don't have a good context, because to design games, you have to learn first about a lot of how a lot of different RPGs work, and why they work the way they work or why they don't. And if all you have is like play experience or DMing experience in one game, which is like 3.5, you don't really know enough to be able to design, especially a flagship of like another D&D edition, right? Because you don't really know what you're doing and what you're even trying to do. Richard Kuntz said, perhaps the name should be Dungeons and Drag Queens. Yeah, maybe. Diversity and drag queens. I'm not sure.
It fits.
Matthew Sinance asks, I'm not sure if this is for me or you, but you're the guest. So, do you think the left was doomed to fall into gender ideology wars, or was there some critical step that caused them to derail and fall into that zone? I know what my answer would be, but you go ahead first.
Yeah, the left was doomed to do this, and they predicted it with that movie back in the 90s called PCU, if you remember that movie.
I do remember PCU.
They predicted just about everything that was going to happen to us in that movie, and it was surprising that you're looking back at it now. Yeah, they were going to. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, well, I forget who it was. Was it Wolf or was it William F. Buckley who said that the political left of the 1960s lost every battle and won every tenure track job. And that's why by the 1990s, they started transforming the culture, right? Because they basically infiltrated the universities after their 1960s hippie activism fell apart. And you can really attribute it to the change in not just the universities, but all the education system. It starts with the adoption of the kind of 60s Marxist revolutionaries like Paulo Freire, who basically every education department in North America and English-speaking Europe are now directed on the ideas of this psychotic Brazilian communist who argues that education shouldn't be to instruct people on how to think in a logical or a critical fashion, but rather to inspire them to be revolutionaries and to be prepared for revolution and to like upend the status quo, right? That is the main goal of education, is to teach children to be opposed to the dominant paradigm. And from the 90s onwards, that's how schools have been increasingly run, right? And then the adoption of postmodernism, which ends up destroying all definition of everything, has ended up making the left not just incapable of being able to avoid the errors of critical theory, but also to make them literally unable to in any way defend their ideas, which means that they have to resort to cancellation and censorship. Because if they're saying, well, if they're making a comment about women and women's rights, and you get, somebody says to them, well, what is a woman? They can't really answer that, right? Like that Daily Wire proved that pretty effectively with that in that movie. It's such a fundamental basic thing that you say, well, okay, so.
Well, they did define it for us and they backed out of the question, but remember the female boxer? Female boxer.
Mm-hmm.
She was born female. Oh, so you can define a female. Okay. Yeah. Oh, no, wait. No, that's not what we meant. Oh, yeah, that's what you meant exactly.
Yeah, that's where the problem shows up there. But no, like they become, the point is they become incapable of making a rational debate anymore, right? So they just can't do it. We saw it, for example, just last week in the Oxford debate that they did on, if Israel is being criminal in fighting against the attempt to commit genocide against Israel, right? So as soon as you get to that point where they say, well, it's Hamas did a terrible thing, but Israel shouldn't get to fight back. I mean, come on, like you're crazy, because obviously the Palestinians are darker skinned, so they must be right. There's no way. What argument are they going to do, right? Like it's an impossibility for them to be able to create an effective argument, So instead, that the Oxford debates, which has for I forget how many years, 170 more, had the most. They are the paragon of schools doing the paragon of formal debate in the Western tradition, turned into this insane shouting match, right? Where they were, the people that were arguing on the pro-Israel side were being shouted and screamed at and intentionally mobbed into silence by by these fanatics because their whole point is we shouldn't debate with you. You're hateful. We don't, debate doesn't make any sense. You're wrong. We're right. And we can't prove it, but we know we're right.
Yeah. Right.
So it's just awful, right? How
Yeah.
It's the end of all of the intellectual foundations of the West. Anyway, we've jumped into a very big political topic there. Just after you said you don't want to get too involved in political topics, but that's my audience for you. I'm sorry, I didn't pose the question.
Oh, no, not a problem. I don't mind talking about things because we're adults here, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of us are adults.
Some of us are, yeah. Artistically accurate. We'll see you later. You have to go to sleep. Dicetail says, how important is narrative flow in your sessions? How do your preferred systems contribute to that?
Narrative flow? I mean, I'm a very reactionary GM, so I let my players kind of drive the adventure. And if I'm not going to ruin things for them as far as throwing things like combat and stuff, I want them to, I was reading that comment and laughing. I want them to have a good time, so I will narrate a story and let them choose. I'll give them the options and let them pick, and then I'll react from there. So a lot of my stuff is kind of just bullet points.
Yeah, I have no idea what narrative flow is supposed to mean, unless you just mean, does your world become a virtual world and then things happen in it? Because that's pretty much how I run things. Is there are random events that happen, like especially because I've become increasingly better at this, right? So with Sword and Caravan and Baptism of Fire, there are complete tables that you can just say, okay, so you're going out on the road or in the Wilderland, and depending on where it is, or you're inside a city. These are things that are happening there, and you as the DM, all you have to do is turn those into adventure hooks, and usually there's relatively very little that you have to add to it, and it starts to play. And there's always been at random tables, and I've had random tables in my earlier games in Lion and Dragon and stuff like that. But I've become better at doing multiple layer generators that when you use them, they're very specific to the setting. That's the trick, right? But when you use them, they work, and they don't just work. It looks to the players. If you didn't tell them that you did not, in fact, write this all up days before the game and it was all pre-planned, they might think it is, right? They might believe that it's something that you had written up and planned, but it's actually something that you are generating at the moment. If you were rolling it in some way that they couldn't see you do it, right? At least then they would think, yeah, this is all something he wrote up, right? Because that's and the effectiveness of that means that you are not, as the DM, turning into a movie director, and that actually makes a big difference in terms of whether the world feels real, like as in this is a real world, or real as in this is a movie, right? Those are two different things. So Space Zeus here, $5. Thank you so much for the super chat, Space Zeus. Can you imagine the collective read the day the RPG Pundit takes charge of Wizards of the Coast? Well, I think people could probably sell Elon on putting me in charge just on that basis alone, because we all know that if there's one thing Elon loves, it's to piss off the leftists. So
yeah, he does.
Autistically Accurate says like and subscribe to the Pundit, and to him too. Autistically Accurate has his own channel where he talks about stuff other than just RPGs, so I think. But anyway, Mellow Funk says it's weird since focusing on Stranger Things and how it helped make D&D more popular. The version the characters played in the show versus 5e are pretty different experience-wise. Yeah, well, that's because I think you're understanding it differently. That the popularity of Stranger Things was not for people to want to play old school D&D, but to feel the member berries of old school D&D, right? Not that's kind of a different thing, you know.
Yeah, they were playing Mentor Edition, so I remember Frank trying to lobby his way onto the show for that.
Yeah, but there you are. That was never going to become something that was going to make them suddenly get more old school. Because also, like the Stranger Things was very important, when it came out in terms of boosting the popularity of 5e. But 5e was already a success at that point. Like it had already become a bigger success than 4e by that point, anyways. And then after that, it got eclipsed. The importance of Stranger Things was kind of eclipsed by Critical Role.
Yeah. I don't know.
Elon buying WotC would be one of the biggest victories in the culture war, because D&D is one of the foundations of nerddom. Well, I guess that's true. I mean, there are other things that he could also get that would be a similar coup, perhaps. And like, if he saved DC and Marvel comics, for example, the difference being that RPGs like Wizards of the Coast could be woke forever, well, until they go broke, but we could all still make RPGs, D&D based RPGs, like all of mine, that are not woke, right? And you can still buy them and you can still play them because it's a decentralized hobby. But when you're talking about IP stuff like, Marvel or DC superheroes, you can't do it. You can't. There isn't an RPGPundit of comics that could go. I guess you could try and make a kind of knockoff version of Batman, right? But he couldn't do Batman for sure. And if he did something that's too close to Batman, they would try to sue him, right? So you're stuck doing like characters that are definitely not going to be able to be suable. So that's a harder situation in some ways. Which is not to say I don't want Elon to buy WotC. I do, but Elon can't buy everything, I guess. It probably wouldn't be good if he did. even I will admit, if he bought everything, that would be a bit of a problem.
You sure 4E was a success? I don't know. Where were you reading that? Because I don't remember.
No, 4E was not a success.
Oh, okay. I thought you said it. They drove so many people from the hobby.
5E was a bigger success in like the first 3 months than like 4E was its tiny run. And there's been a very interesting thread recently where some of the people that were working in Wizards during the 4E period, they've now come out and said everybody knew within like the first 9 weeks that they were really in trouble, and by like the first 5 months they knew that this was going to be a massive flop. And I predicted it at the time when 4E came out. I said this is gonna, because it was based on Forge Theory, right? Forge Theory says you have to pick one of 3 lanes and you should do it like that. And I said, well, okay, if you do that, then the other 2 lanes, and they're roughly in thirds, right? Gamist, narrativist, narrativist, and simulationist. In as much as those even exist, they're basically separating the major preference of gamers into one of those thirds. And so if you're only doing it with one thing, with the gamist thing, then 66% of the people that bought 3E will not join you on that, right? And you're not going to get, and you're only going to get growth from people that are only into the kind of gamist style of 4E. And I was absolutely right, which is why they hired me to help do 5E, right? Which turned out to be a big success because it's the exact opposite. It says you can do anything in the game. You can modify the game to suit the type of style that you want. And it's meant to be a game that's super easy for casual play, and it largely was that, especially at first.
Reminds me of West End Games towards the end when they had Master Book out and they knew it was going to be a flop, but they kept continuing with it, and then realized their mistake too late.
It's hard to avoid that at some point, because eventually you've sunken costs, but they should have. It would have been better for them to say, okay, no, we made a mistake, killed 4E at the end of the year, and we start something else, right? But instead, they had to like keep trying to find a way to save it. And it's because people were worried also that there's always the problem in corporations that you have like the executives up here, and then you have like the guys that are doing the design here, and those guys don't want to be fired because if they go over to the executive and say, well, no, this is a flop, they're going, okay, you're all fired, right? That's going to be the normal response. And definitely the guy in charge is going to be fired. And so what they would rather do is say, no, we've got to retool it. We can rework it. We can make it so much better, and it's going to be fine, right? Just give us another year and a half, and then it just keeps getting worse usually.
Well, they figured it out with 3E to 3.5. Why couldn't they figure it out with 4? They revamped 3 within what, year or two?
4E was radically different to 3E though, so like they couldn't just make it more. and the problem was that it was set up to be a very narrow focus game, and they could have reworked it to expand it, but honestly, it would always have looked then like some kind of weird chimera, right? Like the real answer is dump it and do something closer to the because there's the least traditional D&D also. It was much less traditional than 5e, for example. Snake Oil Sean, another $5. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Going into the kitten proofing fund. And he says, how do you view the tendency in modern culture to only mine old IPs and create nothing new? Didn't TSR have many properties in play besides D&D? Well, some people are saying that one of the reasons Elon might want to buy Hasbro is because he's going to want IP. He wants X to become the everything app. He wants to be like the equivalent of I think it's Weibo, it's called in China, right? Which is one app that does pretty much everything that YouTube, X, TikTok, Facebook, all of those, and eBay, and all of Amazon, whatever. You order things from there, you do everything just there, right? And part of doing that, he would also want it to have media, right? So if he wants media, he's going to want IP. And Hasbro has a lot of IP, and the kind of IP he likes because he is a nerd, right? So it's got, I don't know, they have Transformers, I think, and G.I. Joe. I don't know. G.I. Joe might be Mattel. I don't remember exactly, but he's got a ton of stuff that is, from animated shows, from toys. He has stuff that he could take from games, stuff that he could put into games. He'd have Pokemon, he'd have, Magic the Gathering, D&D, all of that stuff. And he would then be able to apply that via the X app. So that is a possibility. But as far as, I don't know, what do you think about this question from Snake Oil? I think he's right that is the situation. Right?
I hate the fact that they mine original IPs from TSR because they can't create anything new, and they just want to bank on what we remember. I can't. It's like with TV shows when they do that. They just take it and they ruin it. And they put their check boxes into it, and it's just like, they ruined Ravenloft completely for me.
Yeah,
I don't even want to look at it.
The reason why they ruin old IPs and why they can't make new IPs that take off, that they all everything they try to do that's new, it sucks and nobody likes it. It's for the same reason. It's that influence of postmodernism, and postmodernism combined with critical theory that suggests that traditional structures are wrong, that authority is wrong, hierarchy is wrong, that morality is wrong. And essentially, because most stories are in some form going to be either a morality arc or the heroic fantasy arc, which is part of that morality arc. There's always an element of it there, even if it's heroic fantasy, even if the hero is not heroic in the modern sense. We're talking about the classical sense. He might be a total asshole, but he could still be a heroic fantasy hero, right? And that is very much in the vein of D&D, right? D&D is classic Campbellian heroic fantasy. It's the hero's journey. Yeah. And they not only, because they reject the concept of symbols having objective meaning, they can't actually process how to use those symbols to create an effective story. It's like, the story of Luke Skywalker, right? He's the farm boy that was dreaming about going out to the stars, but he thought he was a nobody. And then suddenly he gets a chance encounter with fate. He meets the old wizard who tells him that actually he's of a lineage that is of heroes, and this inspires him and teaches him some of the secret mysteries. And then he goes off and goes on this great adventure to rescue the princess and to slay the monsters. And then he ends up being the one that manages to destroy the great dragon, in this case the Death Star, in the end of the movie. That whole deal, right? That is the heroic story of Luke Skywalker, right? The heroic story of Rey in the new Star Wars movies is Rey is a girl and she knows how to use the Force. The end. Like because they can't define it by action, identity, or destiny anymore. They can only define it by individual identity, right? So this is the gay character, right? And people are saying, well, yo, you just don't like gay people because you're saying this. And I'm like, no, because there were, if you look at TV in the 90s, you know, whether it's you're talking about gay characters or black characters or women characters, there were a ton of those before wokeism took full hold of Hollywood that
nobody cared.
that existed, were tremendously popular. You know, Captain Sisko is someone who was brought up recently in X, right, or Commander Sisko initially from Deep Space Nine, right, black character, and
didn't care.
Yet that wasn't his story, right?
Nope.
Because the story in the 1990s was he was a captain. He fought at the battle against the Borg where his wife died, and he's got, you know, he's been sent to this frontier station, and he's kind of in a he's in a moment of crisis. He has a young son. There are all these elements to it, right? He's a profound, complex character. If they remade that now, first of all, Sisko would be a woman, and the thing would be she's a strong black woman. The end, because there's no you can't have a path for any of these characters, because that would imply that at the beginning something is bad with them, something is incomplete, or something is wrong with them. And since the point is to celebrate their identity, you have to say they're perfect right from the beginning. Every character becomes a Mary Sue.
You have one thing wrong. He would have been a trans character. That's what he would have been.
Maybe at this point, possibly. So this is what the problem is, and that's why they cannot create new IP.
Yeah,
right? It's not hard to create new IP. I mean, in essence, Baptism of Fire is new IP. I mean, I'm inspired by actual history, but you know, the context of this kind of adventuring in early Christian Poland. And you know, a lot of the stuff that I'm putting in there is from myth and legend, but it's also you know, a story that hasn't been told yet in the West, at least as far as I mean. It might have been in very minor senses, but it's an attempt to tell this particular story of the Christianization of Eastern Europe, right? And that's a kind of IP, but they couldn't do that because, of course, you know, like how problematic would that be? The Christians are going to win against the pagans? Well, it's not that simple, but yes, eventually they do. So yeah, they just can't do that. Everything they do has to be about just representation, which is why their characters that they create for these 5e campaigns are largely about how they physically look and their sexuality and, you know, what kind of monster they are, because they always want to be some kind of monster, basically. Because that is in some way a represent, like, you know, I don't know what the code is, but there are very clearly codes, right? That obviously tieflings are now gay, and you know, there's some others that are, I think Aasimar or some of that are trans, and you know, like it's a substitute. Your race becomes a substitute for your character's race, or mixture of races becomes a substitute for having an actual personality of your character, right? And you don't need a personality if you're a non-binary half orc, half tiefling boy, you know, like that's it. That's your personality. It's the substitute, right? Which is also what a whole bunch of millennials have done with their entire lives, right? They've substituted their identity for actually having personality.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone on a rant now.
It's your show, man. Whatever.
That's right. The Ultra American has just signed up on the RPG site. Well, welcome aboard. And you know, I'm not promoting the RPG site because I make money off it or anything like that, because I don't really. The only thing I ever make money off of the RPG site is like banner ads, and that's like $30 a month or something like that, right? Like I don't make a lot of money from banner ads.
Donations, right? Donations, maybe.
Well, we do a donation drive every couple of years to pay the server costs, but that's I don't actually even get to that money because Brett Bernstein is the tech mod. He's in the US. He's the one that's handling that part of it. So I never see that money, and he uses that money. If there's leftover money, it goes just into the fund for the next time we have to pay the servers, right? Nobody's taking any profit out of that.
Perfect.
So it's essentially a non-profit operation, except for very occasional banner ads. Let's see what else we've got here. 4E was good as a tactical miniatures game. Yeah, but there are better tactical miniature games, right?
Yeah,
I've heard people say that before, but it's not better than some of the other ones that are there. Ultra American says, how long does it take to receive an activation email for the RPG site? Now, I don't know for sure, but if you haven't done so yet, check your spam folder.
That's what I suggested.
Yeah, but it might take a little while.
Hours.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Diversity and Dragons. Oh, you're here. He points out Musk is going to be super busy over the next 2 years, though. Yeah, in charge of Doge, the Department of Government Expense.
Oh, I can't wait for that to start.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be brilliant. But he put other trusted, like, no one of confidence has got it right. He can buy it and then put other trusted people in charge. Like, I don't know who he'll put in charge of Hasbro. But if he puts me in charge of D&D, he's not going to have to worry. Let's see. What else are people saying here? No one of consequence says they tried to make her Rey like Luke by having her live as a scavenger on a Tatooine-like planet. Yeah, that's correct. But that shows you that they literally cannot understand archetypes, right? Because they thought, oh, well, if we do that, it's the same. It's the same thing. No, it's nothing like it. It's not the same in any way because you had her being perfect on the sand planet. You know, one of the things about Luke is that he was kind of a screw up a lot of the time in the first movie, right? And then gradually he starts getting, and it's only really near the end when he still has to have his ass saved by Han Solo, right? At the last moment to save him from Darth Vader. And that is part of it. It's he's still, that's only the first third of his journey, right? So he's still developing. Whereas Rey was just a badass right from the start because she's the strong, powerful woman, right?
Mary Sue.
Yeah, exactly. The only characters they can create are basically Mary Sue and transparent villains who are basically villains because they're intolerant. All right, so we're caught up there. So let me get to the next question I had for you.
Yes, sir.
So this is a question. I mean, it's something I noticed. All right, and I'm kind of wondering why you think this is, because I was kind of surprised. I'll admit I haven't looked at your channel anytime recently until we decided to have you on, and I was surprised that you have almost exactly the same number of subscribers as I do, because you have like 8,080, I think.
Something like that.
And I have 8,017 right now, according to YouTube. So we're like almost at the same level, and yet I've noticed that my videos get on average quite a lot more views than yours do, and so I'm wondering if you have a thought about why that is, right? And if you like, I mean, I noticed one thing. I just thought I'd mention this to you because I don't know if you want unsolicited advice, right?
Sure.
But I noticed that there's an important difference in our videos, or not in our videos, but in the difference between how we do our videos, which is that I counted down the last 30 videos I did.
Yes.
And not counting live streams. I skipped the live streams. I'm just looking at videos that I posted. And if I take the last 30 videos from before today, that takes me back. The first of those 30 videos would have been on like the 11th of July. Okay. And if I look back at the last 30 videos you've posted, it doesn't. Yeah. It barely gets you to the end of November, right? Like the end of you've basically done 30 videos in about a month, in less than a month's time, in like, I think it would be like 20 days time. So I'm wondering if the amount of videos that you're posting is in some way reducing the amount of time that people, because I noticed that if you post a video with a certain amount of frequency, then people will, there are some people who only look at the top video, right? So is that effective for you? Or do you think there's some other reason? Because I mean, I know that you always had, I think you always had a blog that was as successful or more than mine, right? And you're also doing stuff on Spotify. I don't know what your views are on Spotify, because I haven't really looked there. I thought that might be another reason that maybe you get more listeners there, or more records there, or maybe you're doing it on somewhere else. But I was just curious to know if you had if you had an idea, and if you're looking to get more subscribers or more views.
I think it boils down to maybe I do to put out way too much stuff, because I know a lot of people who, because I advertise on YouTube. I use YouTube advertising a lot. I'll put a
Really? I've
video.
never
Yeah,
done that at all.
I put up a video and then I'll throw like $2 into YouTube advertising, and then I'll see an increase of subscribers, and I'll notice them looking at backlog stuff. Because I do a lot of videos that are like your videos are topical videos, like what's happening, your thoughts, what's going on in the gaming. Mine are more of, hey, here's this game I really like, here's how to play it, and here's how you can play it this way. And people sometimes either really like that or they really don't. And I notice a lot of people are watching the backlog of my stuff. Like they'll be watching how to play Star Wars 1E, or what about DC Heroes? People are really watching those videos. So it really depends on what the channel's about. So
yeah, I think you've got a number of different topics, and I have different topics too. Like I have first and foremost, probably, and let's go in order of viewership. Number one is probably my rants, which is basically, I've literally got a playlist called Rants, right? Which is me complaining about whatever garbage is happening at the present moment in the politics of the hobby, right?
Right.
And those are by far the most views that I get, right? And then the second most usually is live streams. Live streams do very well for me. Which is why I brought in, after Inappropriate Characters ended, I brought it in here. By the way, $5 Australian, I think it must be, super chat by My Ear Trumpet Has Been Struck by Lightning. Luke had to get training, Ray's mastering Jedi powers with zero training. Exactly. That's the issue. And then here's another one from another $2 Australian, I'm assuming. Vince, yes. I try my best to watch as many as I can. So second is my live stream. Third, and about equal to the live streaming, is what I call You've Been Taught D&D Wrong on Purpose. That's the name of that playlist, which is advice for, DMing advice, how to play advice, all that sort of thing. And then the stuff what gets the least views of all are reviews, but I still like doing them. And probably that hurts my channel a bit, but I do them anyways.
I want to say one thing here before you continue. I don't care about views. I don't care about numbers. All I care about is my passion for gaming and showing people that I like a game, and I want them to get interested in it too. That's all I'm about. And helping other people out, as I've been doing. I've been adding more podcasts to my channel, letting people use the platform to get their podcasts out there. That's what I'm about. And I think God Made in Heaven has a good comment there if you want to put that one up. People are addicted to controversy rants. That one.
Where is that one?
It's halfway, almost all the way at 9:31. 9:31.
9:30. Oh, okay, yeah. For me, it's 12:31. But yeah, okay, I see.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're at a different time.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm in a different time zone for me. People are addicted to controversy rants for the drama. Vince posts knowledge-based videos based on game little dramas, more how to content. Yeah, but I mean, he's right. I'm just looking at his page. And some of his, how-to videos are the biggest, they have the most views of his channel, right? What I think is that you've got, so you've got live streaming that you do that I guess is also usually podcasting. And then you have, so we're looking at the playlists here, you have a large variety of playlists, some of whom are cooperative play, like actual play stuff.
Yep.
And then other stuff that is like advice stuff. And then some others. I'm sure there's probably a few other versions of this. And I don't know. I think you have to, because one of the things that happens with YouTube is that you can get like a video that does really well, and that'll help boost your algorithm. But if you have videos that do very poorly, that drops your algorithm. And if you have more videos that they're doing poorly than videos that are doing well, it reduces your algorithm's presence, right? So I'm not saying you shouldn't do this content at all, but you might want to branch off a separate channel for stuff like the live plays. If, for example, those are getting less views than your advice videos, and you might find that actually then the advice videos will get even bigger, and next thing you know, you'll be like Diversity and Dragons, who's devouring us all. Like because he, of course, he actually knows how to do all these intros and stuff like that. If I could do the intros, maybe I'd do as well as he does. But there we are.
Yeah, I like Diversity and Dragons channel. It's a good channel.
Oh no, fantastic channel.
Yeah.
And as you noticed, he's my admin at the moderating the chat there. So I'm glad he's on board here.
Be careful in that chat.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just once in a while we get some people coming in to spam or weird. It used to be, I was like, people like come in and are like, we hate you, pundit, whatever, profanity or insults or whatever. But lately it's been like when you get to like this, where you got like 60 people and up, that suddenly like these total randos show up and they start saying stuff that's like, I don't know, like I like anchovies. Who likes anchovies? Like this stuff that's like, I don't know if they're like kids that come that make a hobby of Gen Alphas or something, showing up just to post nonsense on live chats at random, or if it's like some kind of a bot or like what they're doing, because it's not anything that it can't even be taken as an insult. It's just pure spam, wild. Diversity and Dragons. Oh, hang on. Let's go back up here. I like Evil DM's Unisystem stuff. I think I didn't highlight that one yet. So there you go. There's another one. That's $2 Australian. And Diversity and Dragons says, watch Nate Black if you want to find out how YouTube tries to match you with your audience. Yeah, because in a way, algorithms are kind of a horrible thing. I mean, but this is I think it's more for YouTube's benefit than for any of us, especially, right? Especially nowadays, because the algorithm, what it mostly tries to do nowadays is favor like corporate YouTube stuff, right? So, WotC videos will get bigger. And even then, though, they do really badly. I don't know if you've ever seen that. WotC has like 200,000 subscribers, and a ton of their videos get less views than my videos do, right? Like they do horribly for a YouTube channel. It's very weird.
You know what? You're kind of like Howard Stern was in the 90s. People tune in to hear what you have to say, whether they like you or not.
They like the controversy. Yeah, of course. I'm well aware that like half of the people viewing are people like, oh, I hate the pundit,
Yeah.
But that's always been my thing. That was my thing since like 2004, right? When I was talking about the swine, like it's always been the way it works for me.
You're the old Stern that we used to love or hate.
Yeah. Well, I was never a big fan of Stern, but I get what you're talking about there. I'm the shock jock. Yeah.
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh also. No one.
Yeah. There we go. I'd much rather be compared to Rush than to Stern.
Okay, fair enough.
Because Stern was just kind of a potty mouth, but Rush, there was this. He was quite amazing when you watched him. Like I remember back in like the early 90s. When there was the Bill Clinton got involved in Somalia and all the Black Hawk Down stuff was starting to happen, and there's like this warlord Adid, right? And Rush Limbaugh for weeks would have this little thing about like the map of Somalia. So you see warlord Adid's head pop up there. Oh, there he is. We're gonna get him this time. Clinton knows what he's doing. He invented that kind of political mockery, right? The stuff that nowadays you see. In the Babylon Bee and on Daily Wire and stuff like that, that he was the guy that came up with that. He was a genius. Very inspiring. I mean, I didn't agree with all of his politics, but I certainly was amazed by how he invented that. The right-wing pundit was his creation, at least in America. Because before that, everybody wanted to be William F. Buckley, right? The guy in the little suit, and he's kind of high class, and he's the poors, we don't need to worry about them, that sort of thing. Rush was a populist. Yeah. So Double D is a mod. Yes, he is. Your trumpet. Yeah, no one of consequence says Double D's taught me if you're going to do live streams, you have to have a co-host to riff off of. Well, I don't know. I can't handle having more than one guest on my channel, anyways. But I do like this long form interview format, and the chatting with the audience. For me, I try to make my co-host my audience, because I do also do occasional live streams where it's just me, but then I'm interacting with the audience all the time. But you have to have someone to bounce off of. You're right.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. All right, so we're getting like to 140, and I've got 2 more questions left for you.
Shoot them.
So one of them you already know it's coming if you've seen previous episodes, but the penultimate one. So I got this in my head because I was.
That's a great comment.
I was watching. I'm a historian, right? So I watch a lot of like history documentaries and travel documentaries, and there is one travel documentarian that I kind of discovered recently that, by all accounts, I should just despise, right? And her name is Sue Perkins. She's a British lesbian overweight comedian.
Okay.
Who her comedy is exactly like, you know, what that description would sound like, right? And yet she's taken the last couple of years to doing these travel documentaries, going to different places and this kind of off the beaten track thing, where actually when I'm watching it, she's really good at that, right? Like she suddenly, maybe because she becomes a fish out of water, or because she's not in her own environment, but suddenly she's actually funnier, I think, in the documentaries than she's ever been on a stage. And she has this kind of self-deprecating nature, right? Like she recognizes all of the things she doesn't know, and suddenly that leads her to be a more open person, and then it actually makes it interesting, right? So like, I shouldn't like those documentaries, but I do. Okay, so my question to you is, what's something, and you know, it could be about RPGs or it could be about something else in, you know, your general world, that you shouldn't like but that you do, and you know, try to pick a good one, not something I always could say, oh well, yeah, but that's not a big deal, right? I just admitted to liking a lesbian comedian, so let's try to keep it at least at that level.
Wow, that's something I've not thought about, to be honest. I gotta think about that one. Is there another question you can ask while I think about that one?
I'm gonna look and see what the audience says, because maybe they have some ideas. Let's see what we say here. I get spammed with WotC videos in my suggestions, says Marcus Aurelius. Yeah, but no, you look at their view count, Marcus. Nobody's watching. It's incredible. Rick Anderson says, I'm blessed to never have been inundated with WotC videos in my suggestions. Overboard says, maybe he's meant to say the pundit is like an anchovy. Most people hate them. You don't try to understand these like Gen Alpha spammers. You know, they're completely incoherent. They're like feral children, I think. My ear trumpet says, anyone who's watched Great British Bake Off knows her. I've never seen that. Before this, I'd only ever seen bad clips of her doing bad comedy. Daryl Eckert says, you need a co-host or a cat. And no one of consequence says, that's true. Meatball and Big Chungus were great co-hosts. Yes, they were. And I will soon have another furry co-host at some point. Again, assuming that they want to, right? Because I never forced either Chungus or Meatball to do anything. But cats will naturally show up when you're doing something strange, and you know, where there's books to sit on top of or to knock over. You know, they're naturally drawn to it. So odds are good that my next cat will also want to be on my channel. It'll come eventually. First, I've got to, like I said, I'm going to get a young cat, and so I'm going to want to like put a screen door so that the cat can't just get right out of the front door there and be unsupervised in the wild. So I was hoping you'd get it. Yeah, I'm going to probably sometime in January, maybe, if I get everything proofed by then. All right. So any thoughts, Devil DM? Something you shouldn't like but you do? Come on. What's your dirty little secret?
Maybe musical movies. Movies that have like musical numbers in them. I mean, I enjoyed the Wonka movie that was out recently.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a big admission right there. If you're a Gen Xer, right? And
yeah.
You've seen the original Willy Wonka, it's almost sacrilege to suggest that the remake is good.
Well, not the remake. They had like a prequel movie that came out recently, just called Wonka, and it was actually pretty decent.
That's not the remake that they did with what's his name, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
No, not Johnny Depp. No.
Oh, so it's wait a minute. Was that the one where Tim Chalamet is Wonka? Or is that?
I think that's who the actor was. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, that is a good admission. There are people that are going to mock you over that one, so that's good. I like Sue Perkins, and you're into Timothy Chalamet. There we go. That is well done. I congratulate you. Driving and Dragon says, if you're in the States, you can adopt one from my charity. Yeah, I'm aware of that, but here there are a lot of animal shelters.
Oh, what's his charity?
Driving Dress has a charity of rescue cats, basically, and he was talking about that. If you watch the episode previous to this one, when he's interviewed, he talks about the charity, and it seems to be a very
I didn't finish that one yet. Okay.
Cause that people should check into. I think it's in Tennessee, if I'm remembering correctly, or is it Arkansas? I don't remember which of the two, but it's Driving and Dragons will let people know, I hope. So. Yeah, it will be a rescue cat, but I want to get a relatively young one because I like to kind of train them up on my own, All right, so the final question. If you've watched any episode so far of the RPG Pundit Encounter, you know what's coming. So I am not a regular nerd in the sense that I only really like, at least as an adult. As a kid, of course, I read comic books. I played with Star Wars action figures, et cetera, et cetera. I played video games at the time, I really like Tetris, but and NetHack and stuff like that. So that tells you how old I am. But as an adult, I put away almost all those things, right? I don't read comic books anymore. I read comic books for a bit longer into my 20s, right? But I noticed also that they were pathetically bad compared to the comic books of the olden days. There you go. It's Alabama. Sorry, I knew it was somewhere around there. It's Sebastian's House Community Cat Foundation. There you go. You guys should look into it if you're in the area, if you want to help Driving and Dragons, or if you're looking for a cat. So yeah, I don't collect toys. I don't have any action figures. I don't collect miniatures even. I don't get Funko Pops. I don't play weird German board games. I don't play any video games. I don't play any collectible card games. I don't do any of that stuff, right? I'm not even nowadays. I don't even watch a lot of sci-fi or fantasy, though. I think a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, or even superhero movies are now technically not a nerd thing because they've become so mainstream. But they mostly suck now, anyways. Also, so that's kind of ruined it. So essentially, D&D, or RPGs rather, is the only deeply nerdy thing that I now do. I have other weird interests, but they're not, things that might not be mainstream, but they aren't part of the nerd culture. So my question to you is, how nerdy are you?
I have a shelf on my RPG shelf that's just dedicated to Batman stuff.
Okay, well, there you go.
Figures, little statues, things like this. My Batman shelf. I play video games all the time, read comics still. So I'm about as nerdy, geeky over as you want to get. So.
All right. So apparently, Driving and Dragons, I know why he came here. He wanted to see if he was still our reigning champion, and he still is. Of all the people I've interviewed so far, he is the least nerdy because he likes to play D&D. And then he likes to fix cars and trucks and take care of rescue cats, right? Which are not particularly a part of nerd culture. So there you go. Driving and Dragons, you're still currently the reigning champion. Maybe we'll at some point find someone else who is even less nerdy than you are, but that's going to be tough. So there we are. You might end up being like that guy on Top Gear that got the best time and was at the top level there for years and years. It could happen. So I guess that's about it. Unless you guys have any, I'm gonna give you guys a couple of minutes if you want to have any last minute questions especially for the Evil DM. I mean, you can ask me stuff too, I guess, if there's anything last minute that you had to ask about. But hail to the king, baby. So if any of you have any more final questions for the Evil DM. Otherwise, you can check out his channel. His channel is literally at the Evil DM, all together, right? No spaces.
No spaces.
And you can see his considerable number of videos that he puts out. You must be putting out you're putting up an average of more than one a day. That's pretty clear from what I see.
A lot of them are podcast related.
I put out a video I think it's somewhere between 4 and 5 days.
Yeah, you're every couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Daryl Eckert said, "What's your next project?" I'm assuming that's for you, but I don't know if it is. Maybe it was for me.
Project, that sounds more like for you, but
Okay.
no.
Was that for me, Daryl? I don't know. Answer it first if you have anything new you're planning on doing.
No, I have a new podcast on my channel, Thackle Thoughts. It's with Rob. He talks about AD&D Second Edition.
That was recent, right?
Yeah, it just started. So.
Yeah. All right. So, that's a good question. I like that question. What's the Evil DM's favorite Palladium game to run?
Dead Rain. I love Dead Rain.
That's one of the few Palladium games I've never played. I've got to say. I have a lot of fun with the zombie apocalypse games. You now know which of the three I like. There you go. It's Palladium. But very good question, Ben Brown. Well done. Josh Peters says, "What's the greatest problem facing the hobby right now?" The leftist takeover. Yeah. Well, the good news is it's pretty clear after November that the Thermidorian reaction has finally appeared. Right. That's a term from political science indicating a conservative counter movement that overwhelms a revolution that has gone too far. Right. And that is definitely happening now, and I think that we're seeing a decline in that. I think it's very, very, like I was saying last time with Driving and Dragons. It's really interesting that Gen Zs voted a much larger percentage for Trump than anyone expected, which makes them the guys that have finally broken the. I think it would be almost 80-year streak of every generation becoming more left-wing in their youth than the previous one, that was so common that people started to think that it's always been that way, and it wasn't, right? But it had been that way for 80 years in a row, and now all of a sudden it isn't again, right? And that is a big shift. So I think that's we're technically still in it, but I think that's a problem that's going to start to go away. There might be other problems that will come up later. Who knows? But yeah, I agree. Right now, the biggest problem is still the wokeism in the hobby, but they've suddenly found themselves disarmed. It's all changing, and it's only a matter of time till Elon brings in that kitchen sink into WotC headquarters. Rick Anderson says Ninjas and Super Spies. Yeah, that was a great game. Fantastic. Pretty much for me, the best Palladium stuff was everything Eric Wujik worked on. Yes. Anything that he had to do with, he was the master. I mean, I loved him for Amber, but I loved him first. The first place I discovered him was Palladium books. All right. So I think we're about getting to the end of this. Some people talk about the Department of Education. Before we get into a big rant about how the Department of Education should not exist, let's hope it gets destroyed. I want to thank the Evil DM for having come aboard, for having lasted for almost 2 hours, and we really appreciate it. Our next episode, this one was on the 15th, so the next episode is going to be on the 12th of January, and we will be getting in touch with you guys to announce, probably pretty close to the date, who our guest is going to be. I'm hoping it'll be somebody I've been trying to bring onto the show already or a little bit earlier, but we'll have to see. Anyways, it's going to be an interesting guest, as all of them have been so far. And we hope we will see you next time. Mark the date, the 12th of January, unless some kind of emergency comes up.
Give us a hint. Mm-hmm. Give us a hint who it is. Give us a hint.
Well, like I said, I'm trying to get somebody who was worked for TSR.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's the first hint. I'm also trying to get somebody else who's not primarily an RPG guy, but has been saying stuff related to RPG recently. Not Elon Musk, though. I don't think I'm not going to use my one phone call from Millet to Musk to just get him onto this channel. Plus, he wouldn't come on board because I'm doing this on YouTube, not on X. He would be disappointed.
True.
So I guess that's about it, guys. Thank you so much, all of you who have been here. Remember to share the video, hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Let everybody know about this this series so that we get more viewers. And again, check out all of my products. Check out the Evil DM's YouTube and his other if you prefer Spotify. Check out his Spotify. And I hope that you guys that we'll see you all on the next episode, episode 5. Still currently smoking. This is a Lorenzetti Half Volcano plus Argento Roots. It's held up well. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.